Single-season home run records. Arguably the most cherished records in all of sports. While the act of hitting that ball over that there fence seems simple enough in concept, it's arguably the hardest thing to do in all of professional sports. While goals in hockey and soccer and touchdowns in football, buckets in basketball, and wins in auto racing can happen by sheer goddamned accident, every home run is earned, even if the guy is not known for hitting them. There's also nothing that gets a crowd going quite like a home run, and it can change the whole momentum of a game. While a good amount of MLB fans can name the single-season home run leaders for at least 5 MLB teams, the same is not true for the other baseball leagues around the world, so I've decided to help change that. These are the Sluggers of the East, the single-season home run records for all 28 teams in Asia's top 3 leagues: Japan's Nippon Professional Baseball, Korea's Korean Baseball Organization, and Taiwan's Chinese Professional Baseball League. Quick disclaimer before doing this, I should note that I will be using the Western order of each player's name. This is because the audience this is intended for is primarily Western, and if these players played in MLB, they'd be using the Western order of their names. I mean no disrespect to any Japanese, Korean, or Taiwanese fans watching this, you're just not the intended audience. Got it? Good. Let's get into it. Let's start in Nagoya with the Chunichi Dragons. Founded in 1936 as the Nagoya Baseball Club, the most homers hit in their first season was 3, by Yoshio Samuel Takahashi, who didn't hit any more in the second half of that season and promptly bolted to the Rakuten Eagles for 1937. This record would be tied by 2 players in 1938, Shingo Kuramoto and Toshikatsu Miura, before finally being broken by Shoji Kato in 1939, when Japanese pro baseball finally went to a unified season format. He hit just 6. Catcher Suguhiro Hattori would break that by hitting 8 homers in 1941, which would be tied by Seizo Furukawa in 1942. That would hold until 1946, when Makoto Kozuru would finally break double digits by hitting 10 homers, before Seizo Furukawa took his record right back by hitting 11 in 1947, the first year the team would be called the Chunichi Dragons. Kiyoshi Sugiura would grab the record with 12 in 1948, before former pitcher Michio Nishizawa stepped up and hit 37 homers in 1949. He then added to his own record when he clubbed 46 homers in 1950. Remember Sam Takahashi? Well, he technically held the record for foreign players for the Dragons until 1962, when the Dragons finally hired their first non-Japanese foreign players. And it would be broken by, of all people, Don Newcombe. Yes, that Don Newcombe. Newcombe signed with the Dragons after meeting with Wally Onamine when he was part of a diplomatic mission to Japan. While his arm was shot, Newcombe proved to be a reliable outfielder that year, hitting 12 home runs. That record wouldn't stand for long, because the Dragons then signed Jim Marshall, who hit 28 homers in 1963, then one-upped himself by hitting 31 homers in 1964. That would hold as the foreign player mark for a decade, until Gene Martin came along and hit 35 homers in 1974, as the Dragons won their first CL pennant in 20 years. Then he hit 40 homers in 1976, taking second place on the all-time Dragons leaderboard. While that would fall to Masaru Uno in 1985, Martin's 40 was still the foreign player record for over 30 years. Then along came Tyrone Woods. Woods, who'd been a superstar with both the KBO's Doosan Bears and NPB's Yokohama Bay Stars, joined the club in 2005 and became the first player to hit 30 homers in the cavernous Nagoya Dome. Then, in 2006, he just edged out Nishizawa for the Dragons' home run record, hitting 47. And that's where it stands today. Woods still holds the overall record with 47, while Nishizawa maintains the Japanese-born record with 46. Given the current Dragons hitting situation, I see both standing for a while. Founded in 1950 and spearheading the creation of the Pacific League, the Chiba Lotte Marines, then known as the Mainichi Orions, got out of the gate hot, with Kaoru Beto hitting 43 home runs and helping the Orions win the first ever Japan Series. Charlie Hood would become the first foreign player to hit a home run in club history, and set the initial baseline with 5 homers in 1953. That would quickly fall to Charlie Luis, a Hawaiian catcher who still holds the record for the most valuable season by a foreign player in franchise history. He hit 15 in 1954. That record would hold until Stan Palis broke it in 1964, hitting 17 homers. He then one-upped himself by hitting 25 in 1965. That would hold until 1968, when George Altman became the first foreign Orion to hit 30 homers, hitting 34. Altman would go on to hit 39 homers in 1971, and that would stand as the foreign-born record until 1980, when the younger Lee brother, Leon Lee, hit 41 homers, coming within 2 of Beto's record. Then Hiromitsu Ochiai stepped up and hit 52 homers in 1985, netting him his second Triple Crown. He then hit 50 on his way to his third Triple Crown the next year. No one has cracked 40 since. Ochiai's 52 remains the club record, and the Orions own the longest drought between 40 homer seasons in NPB. Mike Diaz is the only one who came close with 39, and that was all the way back in 1989, meaning Leon Lee's 41 homers still stands as the record for foreign players. Transferring back to the Central League, the Hanshin Tigers were also a founding member of the JPBL, and as a result, the early years are very messy, much like the Dragons. In 1936, Masanobu Yamaguchi and Fumio Fujimura both hit 2. This quickly got obliterated, relatively, by Kenjiro Matsuki, who hit 7 homers in 1937. Matsuki equaled that total in 1938, before Masaru Kageura hit 9 in 1939. That same year, Jimmy Horio would set the foreign-born record with 7 homers. Kageura would not live to see his record broken. He was killed in action during the Philippine campaign in 1945. Fumio Fujimura and Kaoru Beto would both break his record in 1948, hitting 13 homers, with Beto doing so in only 89 games compared to Fujimura's 140. Fujimura would take that record for himself, hitting 46 homers in 1949, compared to Beto's 39. That particular record would hold for 30 years. Meanwhile, Jimmy Horio's record would hold until 1953, when Larry Yogi doubled it by hitting 14. Then the club's first true foreigner, Mike Salamko, would set a new mark with 17. Salamko would best his own mark twice, hitting 21 homers in 1961, then 22 in 1963, before it was obliterated by Willie Kirkland in 1968. Kirkland clubbed 37 homers that year. In 1976, Hal Breeden would become the third 40-homer man in club history, after Fujimura and Koichi Tabuchi, who did it in back-to-back years in 1974 and 75. But his personal best of 45 fell one short of the record. Fujimura's record would finally fall in 1979, when Masayuki Kakefu, who'd just become the 4th Mr. Tigers, hit 48 homers. That mark would stand until 1985, when Randy Bass hit 54 homers to take both records for himself. He could have possibly hit 55, but organizational meddling from the Yomiuri Giants didn't give him a shot. The only people to come close to Bass and Kakefu are Bass himself in 1986 when he hit 47, Tomoaki Kanemoto hitting 40 in 2005, and Craig Brazell hitting 47 out of nowhere in 2010. Still, Bass and Kakefu stand alone on top. Founded in the second half of 1938 as the Nankai Baseball Club, Kinji Nakamura would hold the first official home run record for what is now the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks, when he hit 2 in that half of the season. In 1939, Kazuto Sudaoka would quintuple that by hitting 10, before he was shipped off to command an anti-aircraft unit in Kagoshima. He would return after the war and equal his own record in 1947. A year later, Tokuji Aida would hit 14 homers, then build on his own record by hitting 27 in 1949. That would hold until 1957, when a young catcher named Katsuya Nomura would become the first Hawk to put up a 30-homer season. In 1962, Nomura would become the first Hawk to put up a 40-homer season. Then in 1963, he broke the NPB record by hitting 52 homers. While that would only be the NPB record for a year, it remained the Pacific League record until 2001, and remains the Hawks' record to this day. As for foreign players, their first, Japanese-American Yoshio Ueda, didn't hit a single one in his 3 seasons with the club. The first wouldn't come until 1956, when their second foreign player, Noboru Fujishige, finally hit 1. For the record, both those guys were Hawaiian. They may have had English names, but I wasn't able to find them. Then, Carlton Hanta came along in 1958 and hit 4, steadily growing his record until he hit 7 in 1960. This held for exactly 1 year, because Buddy Peterson would hit 12 homers in 1961. He then nearly doubled that in 1962, hitting 22. Then in 1963, Kent Hadley would come along and become the first foreign Hawk to hit 30 homers in a season. That record would hold until 1970, when Clarence Jones, arguably the best foreign hitter of the 70s, came along and hit 33 homers in 1970. Jones would hit 30 homers in all 4 years he was a Hawk, topping out at 35 in 1971. That would remain the record until 2004, when Julio Zuleta hit 37. In that time gap, the team had been bought by Daiei and moved to Fukuoka, and was about to be bought by SoftBank because Daiei was bankrupt. A year after that sale, Zuleta would hit 43 homers, setting a club record for foreign players that still stands today, as does Nomura's 52. Founded in 1950, the Hiroshima Carp's first home run king was Kazuo Higasa, who clubbed 21 homers during the club's first season. That would hold until 1959, when Akira Owada hit 23 homers. Sachio Kinugasa would come along and eclipse that mark by hitting 27 in 1971, and he would improve on that record twice, hitting 29 homers in 1972, and then becoming the first 30-homer man in Carp history in 1974, when he hit 32. Dr. Gail Hopkins would take the record in 1975 with 33, helping the Carp to their first pennant, and he would hold that record until 1977, when Koji Yamamoto obliterated it with 44 homers, and Adrian Garrett would take the foreign-born record with 35. Yamamoto would hit 44 homers again in 1978, and Garrett would improve on his own record by hitting 40. After hitting 42 homers in 1979, Yamamoto would have his third 44-homer season in 1980, cementing himself as one of the greatest power hitters in NPB history. He'd hit 43 in 1981, making it 5 straight 40-homer seasons. Since then, Greg LaRocca tied Garrett's foreign player record in 2004, and current Carp manager Takahiro Arai came close to tying Yamamoto a year later, finishing with 43, but that'd be as close as anyone would get. Despite a smattering of elite power hitters suiting up for the club since, Yamamoto's 44 still stands alone on top, and likely will for years to come. Founded as a stopgap franchise in 1946, the team we now know as the Hokkaido Nippon-Ham Fighters had the benefit of one of the greatest power hitters of his era falling into their lap. Hiroshi Oshita would hit 20 home runs in their inaugural season in 1946, before nearly doubling that mark by hitting 38 in 1949 for what was then known as the Tokyo Flyers. That record would hold until 1970. In the meantime, Stanley Hashimoto would join the now Toei Flyers as their first foreign bat and hit a lone home run in 1957, getting the de facto record. That record fell after 1 year to Jack Ladra, who hit 9 homers in 1958. In 1970, Katsuo Osugi would break Hiroshi Oshita's club record by clubbing 44 homers in the first of 3 straight 40-homer campaigns. A year later, Bob Christian would become the first foreign flyer to reach double-digit homers, hitting 16. Moving deeper into the 70s, after the team was bought by Nippon-Ham and renamed the Fighters, Walt Williams and Bobby Mitchell would break Christian's record by hitting 23 homers, before Mitchell became the first foreign fighter to hit 30 homers in a season in 1977. Then he hit 36 in 1978. However, both records would fall in 1980 to Samoan slugger Tony Solita, who hit 45 homers in 1980, and nearly equaled that mark in 1981. Since then, both Osugi and Solita's records have held firm, with the only challenger being Fernando Seguino, who hit 44 homers in the Power Mad 2004, becoming the third and final member of the Fighters' 40-homer club. Joining the Central League in 1950, the first home run king of the team we now know as the Tokyo Yakult Swallows was Ryohei Moriya, who led the team with 21 jacks in 1950. In 1952, Kiyoshi Sugiura would set a new mark by hitting 25, before Yukihiko Machida would become the first Swallow to hit 30 in a season, hitting 31 in 1955. For the mid-50s dead ball, that was huge. Andy Miyamoto would become the Swallows' first foreign player in 1963, hitting 11 homers that year. Lou Jackson would grab the record by hitting 20 in 1966, before he and Dave Roberts, no not that one, would tie for the record with 28, with the team now being called the Sankei Atoms. A year later, Roberts would break Machida's record by hitting 40 homers, becoming the first foreign player to hit 40 bombs in a season. Roberts was the franchise's first consistent power threat, as he occupied 4 of the top 5 spots on the leaderboard until 1977, when Charlie Manuel hit 42 homers, 7 years after the team had been bought by Yakult, and 4 years after the team had gone back to using the Swallows nickname. In 1985, Toru Sugiura would grab the Japanese-born record by hitting 34, and in 1989, Larry Parrish would tie Manuel for the franchise lead. Then, the Swallows enjoyed a golden age in the 90s, and along came a shredded Venezuelan first baseman by the name of Roberto Petahine, who hit 44 bombs in 1999, taking the record for himself. The record would be equaled in 2004 by Akinori Iwamura, who came out of absolutely nowhere to become one of the faces of the franchise. Then, in 2013, Vlad Valentin finally became the first Swallow to hit 50. Except he didn't hit 50, he hit 60. That 60 stands as not only the Swallows record, not only the NPB record, but the record for all 3 Asian Summer Leagues. While people have blamed this on the juice balls of 2013, and they did play a part, Valentin's 225 WRC Plus is still a top 20 season in NPB history. In 2022, Munetaka Murakami would eclipse Iwamura's record and set a new record for all Japanese players in the league by hitting 56, getting that final homer in his last at-bat of the season. One of the original 4 NPB franchises, the Orix Buffaloes have the most tumultuous history of any of the 4, but are the second most successful. Their home run record was initially set by Minoru Babe Yamashita, who hit 6 homers in 1936. Then he hit 7 in 1937. Kengo Kuroda would hit 8 jacks in 1938, and that would hold as the club record until 1947, when Noboru Aota hit 11 for the newly renamed Hankyu Braves. Junji Nakatani would hit 15 in 1949, before building on his own record with 21 in 1950. While the Braves would be among the first to sign foreign players in 1952, John Britton Jr. can only manage 2 homers that year, a mark Larry Raines would quadruple in 1953 by hitting 8 bombs, before he went on to hit 18 homers the next year. Side note, not super relevant to this video, but Raines' 184 hits is still the record for PL foreign players 70 years later. In 1959, Yoshihiro Nakata would finally eclipse Nakatani by hitting 23 homers. Then the floodgates opened. Nakata would build on his own record by hitting 29 in 1961, before Darryl Spencer became the first 30-homer man in club history in 1964, hitting 36. He would then hit 38 in 1965, and possibly could have been the first player to hit 40, but Katsuya Nomura's cowardice and a motorcycle accident put a stop to that. That record would hold until 1969, when Tokuji Nagaike became the club's first 40-homer man, hitting 41. He would go on to hit 40 homers in 4 of his next 5 seasons, with his 43 homers in 1973 remaining the club record to this day. Greg Boomer Wells would break Spencer's foreign player record in 1986, grabbing 42, and that would be tied by the greatest foreign player ever, Tuffy Rhodes, in 2007, becoming the first to reach the mark since Orix bought the team in 1988 and merged them with the Buffaloes in 2004. In fact, Rhodes, Wells, and Nagaike are the only players to hit 40 homers in a season in B's franchise history. Rhodes did it twice, Wells did it 3 times, and Nagaike 4 times. Joining the league in 1950, the team we now call the Yokohama DNA Bay Stars came out of the gate swinging. While some Bay Stars fans would like to say Makoto Kozuru's 51 homers was and still is the club record, the fact that that was a different franchise which the Taiyo Whales absorbed after they were officially contracted means I won't count it. If we limit it to players who actually played on the Taiyo Whales, the record is 34, set by Isamu Fujii in 1950, and that would hold until the 60s. In 1962, Jim McManus would join the Whales as their first foreign player and hit 12 home runs, a record that would quickly be beaten by Mike Kirschnich, who hit 13 in 1963. Then, in 1964, Mike Kirschnich would join Darryl Spencer as the first foreign players to hold an NPB team's home run record, when he hit 36. Tomio Tashiro would break Fujii's Japanese record in 1977 by hitting 35, then equaled Kirschnich's record in 1980, but that deadlock stayed for about 20 years, being finally broken in 1999 when Bobby Rose hit 37 homers, in the process becoming the second player after Kozuru to crack 150 RBI in a season. In that time, the team had assumed the name the Yokohama Bay Stars. It would take until 2003 for any Bay Star to hit 40 homers, and that mark would be achieved by none other than Tyrone Woods, who hit 40 in his first season in Yokohama. While Hitoshi Tamura would equal that mark the next year, Woods would improve on it by hitting 45 in 2004. Both their records would fall to Shuichi Murata in 2008 when he hit 46. Since then, Tony Blanco, Yoshitomo Satsugo, and Neftali Soto have all put up 40-homer campaigns, but none of them have eclipsed Murata or Woods. Joining the league in the 1950 expansion, the team we now call the Saitama Seibu Lions started out as one of the 2 expansion clubs in Fukuoka, and proved to be the one that stuck. The then Nishitetsu Clippers' first home run king was Yasuhiro Fukami, who hit 22 in that inaugural season. After absorbing the other Fukuoka club and renaming themselves the Lions, Billy Wyatt would become their first foreign bat and hit 5 homers in 1952, before 20-year-old star Futoshi Nakanishi would obliterate the club's record in 1953, hitting 36 homers. In fact, Nakanishi would be the only player to hit 30 home runs for the Lions for quite a while. After a decade without any foreign players, Tony Roig, George Wilson, and Jim Baumer would join the team in 1963, with Roig hitting 21 homers to quadruple the mark set by Wyatt. Then Frank, that name, came out of absolutely nowhere to hit 24 homers. His previous best was 6. Tony Roig would take his own record back in 1967 when he hit 26, and that would fall in 1970 when Carl Bowles hit 28. Both Bowles and Nakanishi's records would hold until 1980, after the team had packed up and moved to Saitama Prefecture. That year, new DH Koichi Tabuchi set the club record with 43, and Jim Tyrone broke Carl Bowles' foreign player record by hitting 35. Terry Whitfield would take the foreign record for himself when he hit 38 in 1983, before Koji Akiyama capped off his third straight 40-homer campaign by tying Tabuchi's club record in 1987. A year later, Ty Van Berkelio would tie Terry's foreign player record by hitting 38 of his own, before Orestes Destrade would hit 42 in 1990. Those records would stand until 2001, when Alex Cabrera took the records for himself by hitting 49. He then hit 55 in 2002, before intentional walks ground that to a halt. People like to solely pin the blame on Sadaharu O for this, but O's Hawks were not the only one walking him. Another foreign star had hit 55 the previous year, and his club also planned on intentionally walking Cabrera to protect his record, only stopping when he expressed disgust at their actions. That's the only reason Cabrera even got to 55. Why would they sabotage him? Look at the man. It's the early 2000s. Draw your own conclusions. Regardless, Cabrera's 55 remains the club record to this day. Takeya Nakamura would take the Japanese-born record for himself in 2008, hitting 46, before breaking his own record with 48 in 2009, a record he would equal in 2011. The last of the founding four, the Yomiuri Giants are the oldest continuous professional team in Asia. Their club as a whole only hit 3 homers in 1936, with them being hit by Haruyasu Nakajima, Seiichi Hayashi, and Kentaro Ito. Nakajima would put himself above the rest by hitting 9 homers in 1937, and then he hit 11 in 1938, including 10 in just the second half alone, netting him Japanese Pro Baseball's first Triple Crown, even if it was only for half a season. A year later, Filipino power bat Adelano Rivera would set the first foreign player record by hitting 6 homers, including the first Grand Slam in club history. Nakajima's record would be tied by Tetsuharu Kawakami in 1946, before Noboru Aota and Kawakami cranked 25 homers in 1948. Aota would take the record for himself in 1949 by hitting 28, before hitting 33 in 1950. Wally Onamine would break Rivera's foreign player record when he hit 10 homers in 1952, and he would one-up himself by hitting 13 in 1955. Andy Miyamoto would then take the record for himself by hitting 19 homers in 1956, before hitting 21 in 1957. Meanwhile, Aota's mark held until 1962, when a kid named Sadaharu O hit 38 homers. Then 40 the year after that. Then 55 the year after that. That 55 remains the club record 60 years later. As for the foreign player record, Andy Miyamoto's record would fall in 1976 when Davey Johnson, yes, that Davey Johnson, hit 26 homers. John Shippen would hit 27 in 1979, and then Roy White would hit 29 the next year. Warren Cromartie would hit 35 homers in 1984 and boost his total to 37 in 1986. Then Tuffy Rhodes would become the third player in Giants history to hit 40 homers in 2004 and set a new foreign player mark with 45. Alex Ramirez would tie that record in 2008, then Rami Chan took the record for himself, hitting 49 in 2010. And that's how the leaderboard sits, with the top 12 being O, Hideki Matsui, O, Alex Ramirez, O. They called him the king for a reason, folks. From the oldest team in the league to the youngest, founded in 2005 to bring the league back up to 12 teams after a poorly thought out, massively unpopular merger led to a popular players' strike, the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles' first home run king was Takeshi Yamasaki, who hit 25 homers in their first season. Jose Fernandez would hit 28 in 2006, before Yamazaki took his record back, hitting 43 homers in 2007, becoming so far the only Eagle to hit 40 homers. The closest anyone else has come was when Yamazaki himself hit 39 in 2009. Fernandez's 28 would stand alone as the foreign player record until 2013, when it was equaled by Casey McGee. Zealous Wheeler would become the second player in Eagles history to hit 30 homers when he hit 31 in 2017, but that record would be short-lived because Jabari Blash hit 33 in 2019, tying him with Hideto Asamura for the team lead that year. Given that the power stroke in the current Eagles offense is dominated by an aging Asamura, Yamasaki's record looks safe for the time being. Now, normally this is where the video would end, but I thought to myself, why not do something people have always asked me to do, which is cover baseball in Korea and Taiwan. So I thought, why not? Let's loop those leagues into this video, starting with the KBO. Founded as an original KBO franchise in 1982, the Doosan Bears, then the OB Bears, originally played in Daejeon, but the team would move to Seoul in 1985 and have played there ever since. In their inaugural season, Uyol Kim would lead the team with 13 home runs, on the way to winning the first ever Korean series. That record wouldn't be tied until 1988, when Jae-bak Song hit 13 of his own. Then in 1990, Sang-ho Kim would break that deadlock by hitting 14 homers. Young-soo Kang would one-up that in 1991 with 15 homers, before Hyung-suk Lim obliterated that by hitting 26 in 1992. Then, in 1998, the KBO ended its 16 years of isolation and started hiring foreign players, and in steps Tyrone Woods. Remember him? Well, he would hit 42 homers in 1998. Those of you who've been paying attention know that this means one thing. Yep, from 2007 to the end of 2008, Tyrone Woods held the home run record for the Doosan Bears, Yokohama Bay Stars, and Chunichi Dragons at the same time. We already know that Woods' Bay Stars record fell in 2008, and the question is, well, when did his Bears record fall? Well, I'm getting to that, shush. In 1999, the OB Bears became the Doosan Bears, and Jung-soo Shim set a new Korean-born record with 31 homers, which would promptly be tied by Dongju Kim the next year. Shim and Kim would hold the record until 2016, when Jae-hwan Kim clubbed 37. In 2018, Jae-hwan Kim hit 44, taking the club record for himself, with Jae-hwan Kim and Tyrone Woods being the only 40-homer hitters in Bears history. Founded as the Bingray Eagles in 1986 to replace the Seoul-bound OB Bears, the Hanwha Eagles have been Korean baseball's punching bag for pretty much the last 2 decades, only making one playoff appearance since 2007. Their first home run kings were Dae Young-jeon and Gang-don Lee, who both hit 10 homers in 1986. Sung-on Yu would hit 12 in 1987 before building on his record by hitting 15 in 1988. Then in 1990, Jung-hoon Chang would set a new club record by hitting 28. Then he hit 35 in 1991. Then 41 in 1992. Then the KBO's mid-90s dead ball took effect and drove home run production throughout the league way down. But then along came the foreign hitters. In 1999, Dan Rohrmeyer would crank 45 homers, helping the Eagles win their first and so far only Korean Series title. And that's where it's sat ever since, Chang leading all Koreans with 41, Rohrmeyer leading everyone with 45. The closest anyone's got to either record has been when Ji-man Song hit 38 homers in 2022, and William Rosario hit 37 in 2017. Like with the Bears records, I see these standing for quite a while. Founded in 1982 as a founding member of the KBO, the Kia Tigers, originally the Haetai Tigers, have always called the city of Gwangju home. Their first home run king was Bong-young Kim, who blasted 22 homers in that inaugural season in 1982. He would do it again in 1983, and that record would last until 1988, when Sung-han Kim became the first Tiger to hit 30. That record would be tied by none other than the son of the wind, Jung-bum Lee, in 1997, before the team as a whole had a power explosion in 1999. Youngwoo Hong would set a new Korean-born record with 34, and Tracy Sanders would become the first Tiger to hit 40 in a season. He's still the only one to do it, and that's how it stood ever since. Founded in 2008 to replace the Hyundai Unicorns, the Kiwoom Heroes, originally called the Woori Heroes and later the Nexen Heroes, jumped headfirst into the crowded Seoul baseball market. Their first home run kings were former Kia Tiger Ji-man Song and Cliff Brumbaugh, who hit 13 jacks in their initial season. A year later, Brumbaugh would take the record for himself by hitting 27 homers, with the Korean lead falling to Jung-ho Kang, who hit 23. 2012 saw the emergence of Byung-ho Park, as he hit 31 homers. Then he hit 37 in 2013. Then 52 in 2014. Then 53 in 2015, becoming just the second KBO player with multiple 50-homer campaigns. So naturally, he holds the Heroes record. But who holds the foreign player record? Well, it's Jerry Sands, who hit 28 in 2019, creating the biggest gulf between records for domestic and foreign players of any Asian baseball team. Founded in 2013 and joining the KBO in 2015, the KT Wiz brought pro baseball back to Suwon for the first time in 7 years. Their first home run king was Sang-Hyun Kim, who hit 27 homers in their first year. Andy Marte would set the record for foreign players, finishing third with 20 homers. Both records would hold until 2018, when Mel Rojas Jr. set a new team mark with 43, and 19-year-old Bak Hyung Kang setting a new mark for Korean players with 29. Rojas would build on his own record in 2020, hitting 47 homers, before jumping over for an unsuccessful stint in NPB with the Hanshin Tigers. In 2022, the Wiz added free agent Byung-ho Park, and he would set a new domestic record with 35 jacks. Both records have held ever since, and with Rojas re-signing with the Wiz in 2024, both players are still in Suwon and have an ample opportunity to defend or add to their records. Founded as the MBC Blue Dragons, the LG Twins are a founding member of the KBO. Their first home run king was former NPB star Incheon Park, who'd been South Korea's first native-raised baseball star. Since there was no KBO for him to join in 1962, he joined NPB's Toei Flyers, where he Japanglicized his name to Jinsen Haku and stayed with the club until 1974, when Nippon-Ham called the old guard in order to start fresh. After spending time with the Lions, Orions, and Kintetsu Buffaloes, the Blue Dragons had signed him on as a player-manager. Park immediately became the poster child for the gulf between NPB and KBO. In his final 2 seasons in NPB, he put up negative 1.4 WAR, hit 9 home runs, and struggled to stay above the Mendoza line. In his first year in the KBO, he hit 19 homers, put up 5.8 WAR, and set the KBO batting average record by hitting .412. It still stands to this day. He was a player-manager. What the? Normally this would be celebrated, but Park was resented by a lot of players because his time in Japan had made him exempt from military service, and they also felt that his dominance would make the league look bad, so he was traded to the lowly Sammy Superstars. He wasn't the only one. Despite being an ethnic Korean and the ace of the Samsung Lions in his 3 years there, Hisao Niura, or Il-ryong Kim, was often disrespected by his own teammates, who viewed his inability to speak Korean as an insult to their culture. Niura and a few other Zainichi Koreans who'd come back to play in the KBO often felt they were treated with disgust, which was likely the result of years of propaganda calling those who'd stayed in Japan after the war criminals. Park didn't have this problem because he was actually raised in Seoul, but I digress. Tangent over. It took until 1992, 2 years after the team had been bought by LG and renamed the Twins, for Park's mark to fall, when Dong-soo Kim and Koo-hong Song hit 20 homers. Jae-hyun Kim would eclipse that mark by hitting 21 in 1994, and that would hold until 1999, when Byung-kyu Lee hit 30. Manny Martinez would become the first foreign twin to hit double-digit homers in 2002, when he hit 15, and built on that record in 2003 when he hit 17. That record would fall in 2009 to none other than former Yakult Swallows slugger Roberto Petahine, who clubbed 26. But still, no one could eclipse Lee. That was until 2020, when Roberto Ramos managed to hit 38, setting a new club record. And that's how it stands today. Lee and Ramos are the only 30-homer men in Twins history, and the Twins remain the only active club in the KBO to have never had a 40-homer man. Chronologically the oldest team in the KBO, the Lotte Giants were set up in 1975 as their owners, Lotte, had already owned the Orions for half a decade by that point. They spent their entire time in the coastal city of Busan, which is the reason why Busan was chosen to host the KBO Hall of Fame, which should be completed around 2026. Jung-soo Kim, Young-hee Kim, and Young-sung Park set the original club home run mark with 11 in 1982. Young-hee Kim would take the record for himself when he hit 18 in 1983, before a different Kim, Young-shul Kim, hit 21 in 1984, helping the Giants win their first Korean Series title. That would hold all the way until 1997, when Ha-young Ma would hit 25. In 1999, Ma would build on his Giants record by hitting 35, but the new club record would be taken by Felix Jose, who hit 36 that same year. Jose would equal his own record in 2001, and that 36 remains the record for foreign Lotte Giants. However, in 2010, the big boy himself, Daiei Lee, would obliterate that by hitting 44 homers. which has stood as the team record ever since. Founded in 2011 and joining the KBO in 2013, despite the protestations of the aforementioned Lotte Giants, the Chungwon-based NC Dinos have been a runaway success despite only being in the league for a little over a decade. Their first home run king was Ho-Jun Lee, who hit 20 homers in their initial season in 2013. 2014 would see that record get surpassed. Massively. Sungbum Na would take the domestic record by hitting 30, and Eric Thames would hit 37. Then Thames broke his own record and hit 47 in 2015, while also stealing 40 bases, making him the only player in the 3 Asian leagues to pick up a 40-40 season. Thames would pull off another 40-homer season before returning to MLB, and his 47 remains the club record. The record for Korean Dinos has been broken twice, first by Sokmon Park in 2016 when he hit 32, before Sungbum Na took it right back when he hit 34 in 2020, which is where that record stands today. Another original member of the KBO, the Samsung Lions were founded in Daegu in 1982, and have enjoyed a long and rich history in the city. In their inaugural season, local star Mansu Lee would become their first home run king, hitting 13 jacks. Lee would quickly one-up himself, hitting 27 homers in 1983, and that stood as the record for the rest of the decade, which saw Lee put up 4 more 20-homer campaigns. By the way, Mansu Lee was a catcher. Lee's record would finally fall in 1993 to Sungrae Kim, who hit 28, a mark which would be tied by Jung Hyuk Yang in 1996. But 1997 would see the emergence of arguably the greatest Korean hitter ever, Sung Yup Lee. Lee would hit 32 homers that year, and he would follow that up by hitting 38 homers in 1998. Then in 1999, he hit 54 homers, becoming the KBO's first 50-homer man. That same year, Charles Smith would hit 40 homers, setting the benchmark for all foreign hitters to follow him. Now, how would Lee build on this? Oh, only by hitting 56 homers in 2003, setting a record for the big 3 Asian leagues? The KBO tried to hype this up as Lee surpassing Sadaharu Oh, to which Japanese fans scoffed and replied, "Try and do that here." Lee, much to the disappointment of the Samsung Lions, said, "I bet," and signed with the Chiba Lotte Marines. While Lee did have a very successful stint in Japan, joining Tyrone Woods as one of only 2 players to hit 40 homers in a season in both NPB and KBO, Lee never quite hit the 50-homer mark, although I think he'd rather have his 2 Japan Series rings. Lee's 646 career home runs sits 3rd among all Asian players, behind only the aforementioned Sadaharu Oh and Katsuya Nomura. In 2015, Yamaiko Navarro would finally surpass Charles Smith by hitting 48, giving the Lions both the domestic and foreign player single-season home run records. Founded in 2000 to replace the broken, defunct SBW Raiders, the SSG Landers, previously known as the SK Wyverns, quickly established themselves as Incheon's team, though SSG's ownership has been a little shaky in terms of public goodwill in recent years. Regardless of that, former NPBer Harvey Pulliam would be the first home run king in franchise history, hitting 16 homers in 2000. Dong-Soo Lee would lead all Korean players with 14. Tilson Brito would take the record for himself in 2001 when he hit 22, before Jose Fernandez obliterated it by hitting 45 homers in 2002, before he bolted to NPB. Ho-Jun Lee would also take the Korean record by hitting 23, and would one-up himself in 2003 by hitting 36. And that would stand until KBO home run king Jung Choi hit 40 homers in 2016. A year later, he would eclipse Fernandez by hitting 46, which still stands as the club record today. Alright, so we're done with Korea, for now. Let's move on to the confusingly named Chinese Professional Baseball League, the top league in Taiwan. Why is it called that? Well, A, Taiwan's official name is the Republic of China, and B, they absorbed the rival Taiwan Major League. Even though most fans would like to see them adopt something along that name, as it would better represent the league on the world stage, the CPBL won the split. Did any of the major North American sports leagues change their name when they won their respective splits? Didn't think so. Anyways, on to the teams. Founded as the Brother Elephants by the Brother Hotel chain in 1984, the ChinaTrust, or CTBC Brothers, are one of 2 franchises that have participated in all 35 seasons of the CPBL and remain one of the most popular teams in Taiwan. Their first home run king was Freddie Tiburcio, who hit 10 homers in 1990. Kwang Hee Wang would lead all Taiwanese players with 9. Both records would hold until 1992, when Wang would hit 12 homers alongside Hector de la Cruz. In 1994, Luis de los Santos would take the record for himself by hitting 14, a marquee match the next year. In 1996, De Los Santos would smack 22 homers, but that would only stand for a season as Jose Oliva hit 25 in 1997. Feng Ansai would finally break Wang's Taiwanese record in 2002 by hitting 21. That record would be tied in 2007 by club legend Cheng Ming Peng. Suchi Cho would once again equal that mark in 2012. By this point, Oliva's record had stood for 15 years, and it would continue to hold until 2016. In that year, the now CTBC Brothers, who'd never had a 30-homer man in their history, would have 2. Chi Shan-chang, who hit 30, and Chi Shen-lin, also known by his indigenous Taiwanese name Negya Ake, hit 34. Ake's mark still stands as the brothers' record, and given the CPBL's recent preference for foreign pitchers over foreign hitters, he and Jose Oliva's marks will likely stand for years to come. Founded as the Junggu Bears in 1993, the Fubon Guardians are the third oldest club in the CPBL, and have gone through a smattering of name changes over the years, also being known as the Sinan Bulls and the EDA Rhinos. Their first home run king was Chung Yi Huang, who hit 11 homers in 1993. Michael Bosco, their top foreign bat, could only manage 3. That mark would be demolished by Jim Bishop, who set a new club record with 17 homers in 1994. After Sinan bought the club in 1996, Wen Sung Chang would equal Huang's Taiwanese record by hitting 11. Then Jay Kirkpatrick said, "I'll make sure," and hit 31 homers in 1998. That year, Wen Pin Shen would tie the Taiwanese record hitting 11. That mark would finally be broken in 2000 when Chung Chu Lin hit 15 homers. Then he one-upped himself the next year by hitting 18. That would hold until 2003 when Taishan Chang hit 28 homers. And for over a decade, that's how things would stand. Even Manny Ramirez couldn't even hit 10, despite hitting one of the most famous home runs in CPBL history.
我有几个球真的打得不错。
这个球飞到了是在左外野方向。This ball is long gone, just like the ex-girlfriend who will never return. Home run!
But in 2015, Kuo Hee Kao finally stepped up and broke Kirkpatrick's record. In fact, he broke the CPBL record as a whole by hitting 39 homers, and that mark has stood ever since. Joining the CPBL as FFH Agan in 2003 and quickly renaming themselves the Lanu Bears the next year, the Rakuten Monkeys were one of 2 teams absorbed from the Taiwan Major League when it went bust. They took the Monkeys nickname in 2011 when Lamigo bought them and have had it ever since. Their first home run king in their debut CPBL season was Yu Xiang Sai, who hit 6. Rafael Ozuna led all foreign players with 4. They and the other TML refugee Makoto Kida were essentially a punching bag all year, and it showed. But 2004 saw the emergence of the aforementioned Negya Ake, and his 11 homers set a new club record, as did Eddie Rios' 6. Ake would build on his record by hitting 18 homers in 2005, with Victor Rodriguez becoming the first foreign player to reach double digits, hitting 12. After returning from an unsuccessful stint with the LA Dodgers, Chin Feng Chen would become the first 20-homer man in club history when he hit 21 in 2006, and then he built on his record by hitting 26 the next year. Then Negya Ake took his record back, hitting 31 homers in 2009. Then he did it again in 2015 before getting poached by the brothers, where, if you'll recall, he became the only CPBL player to hold the record for multiple teams. His departure would see the emergence of Po Young Wang, who would tie Ake's club record in 2017 before departing for a failed stint in Sapporo with the Fighters. Ake and Wang's record still stands to this day, as does Rodriguez's. Yep, you heard that right. In the 15-plus years since, no foreign monkey has hit more than 12 homers. Oof. The other original franchise to compete in every single CPBL season, Tainan's Uni-President 7-Eleven Lions, or just the Uni Lions, are the most successful team in CPBL history, winning the Taiwan Series 10 times. Their first home run king was Miguel Roman, who hit 13 homers in 1990. Jung Tai-sung led all Taiwanese bats with 4. Both those records would be tied in 1991, with Milt Harper hitting 13 and Chen Shin-seng hitting 4, before both would fall in 1992, with Seng hitting 15 homers and Frank Laureano becoming the first 20-homer man in club history. Both records would stand until 1997 when Boy Rodriguez hit 27 homers to set a new club record. That one would hold for a decade, before former SK Wyvern Tilson Brito stepped up and hit 33 homers in 2007, setting a new CPBL record. Huo Ching-ka would also finally break the Taiwanese record by hitting 20, becoming the first Taiwanese uni-lion to do so. Kao would then hit 22 homers in 2011, before Kai-Wen Cheng took the record for himself in 2016 by hitting 24. Chi Chie-su would hit 27 bombs in 2019 before Anko Lin became the first Taiwanese uni-lion to hit 30 homers, finishing just one shy of Brito's mark with 32 in 2020. And that's where the mark remains to this day, Brito with 33, Lin with 32. While they were a founding franchise of the CPBL in 1990, the Wei Chuan Dragons went defunct in 1999, following a couple scandal and split-ridden years for Taiwanese pro baseball. However, in 2020, Wei Chuan revived the team and brought them back to the CPBL, where they've thrived once again. The first home run king in Dragons history was Matt Huff, who hit 16 homers and helped the Dragons win the inaugural Taiwan series. Shin Mao Chen added 6 of his own before hitting 11 homers in 1991. Shi Sing Lo would become the first Dragon to hit 20 homers when he smacked 23 in 1992, and in 1994, Sil Camposano hit 25 homers, which remains the Dragons' record up to today, making it technically the longest held record in the CPBL. Granted, the length of that record is mainly driven by the 20 years that the team was defunct, but since they've been revived, no one has really challenged Lo or Camposano at the top. Moving on to the final active team, the TSG Hawks. The TSG Hawks have not completed a single season as of the time of writing this, and their original home run leader will be posted in the comments when the 2024 season is over. Now, again, normally I'd stop the video here, but there's also a smattering of defunct teams throughout all 3 of these leagues, and out of sheer curiosity and a bit of OCD, I thought I'd give you all their records as well. With one exception, I will only be covering defunct Japanese teams that actually made it into NPB, so no original Tokyo Senators, Rakuten Eagles, or Nagoya Golden Dolphins. Why? I value my sanity. Founded as the Gold Star Baseball Club in 1946, the Daiei Stars struggled along for a decade to try and break into Tokyo's baseball market, eventually failing and being absorbed by the team we now call the Chiba Lotte Marines. While Daiei's owner Masaichi Nagata was the most forward part of that ownership group, understandably, the Marines would prefer to title themselves to the first ever Japan Series winner, rather than a team that never did much of anything. Anyways, their first home run king was Yoshioka Kuya, who hit 3 homers in 1946. Michio Nishizawa would briefly step in and hit 8 homers in 1947, then 16 in 1948, before returning to the Chunichi Dragons. Torao Ooka would hit 26 homers in 1949, before Shigeya Iijima would hit 27 in 1950. That record would never be topped, and would be consigned to the history books when the Orions absorbed the club. An act of comical hubris, the Nishi-Nippon Pirates lasted only 1 season before being absorbed by the Nishitetsu Clippers, forming the team we now call the Saitama Seibu Lions. Their home run king in that lone season was Yukichi Nagatoshi, who led the team with 21. Founded in 1950, the Kintetsu Buffaloes suffered what I would best describe as 54 years of pain before getting absorbed into the Orix Buffaloes after 2004. Their first home run king was Shigeyoshi Morishita, who hit 30 homers in their inaugural season. That record would stand until 1967, when Carl Bowles hit 31 homers, becoming the first black player to hold a home run record for any major pro baseball team, a year before Dave Roberts. Masahiro Doi would soon take the club record for himself, hitting 40 homers in 1971 as the Black Mist scandal started to close in on him, and Clarence Jones would grab the foreign player record by hitting 38 in 1974. Then Charlie Manuel stepped up and hit 48 homers in 1980, setting a new record for foreign players that would hold until 1985 when it was broken by Randy Bass. Ralph Bryant would one-up that record in 1989 when he hit 49 homers in his first full season, and that would hold until 2001 when Tuffy Rhodes and Norihiro Nakamura would set new club records with 55 and 46 homers respectively. And that's where those records were frozen. Despite stealing the name and the stadium, Orix doesn't care for the Kintetsu Buffaloes' history, so despite those marks topping anything any Beast player has ever done, they remain just a footnote in NPB history. Founded as the Dai Tokyo Baseball Club in 1936, the team that eventually became the Shochiku Robins had arguably the most tumultuous history in pro baseball, starting as a joke and eventually becoming the first CL pennant winners, before suffering such a catastrophic fall that they were kicked out of the league after 1952, merging with what is now the Yokohama Bay Stars. Their first home run king didn't emerge until 1937 because not a single player hit home run in 1936. Their first home run king would be Saburo Nakamura, who hit 3 homers in the spring of 1937 before getting drafted into the Army, not returning to the club until the fall of 1938. After that, he would join the Nagoya Baseball Club before being shipped off again, dying in Nomonhan, China sometime during the Second World War. I'm mentioning this because Nakamura's record would not be broken until Naoto Asahara hit 4 in 1942, and we're unsure if Nakamura was alive at that time. Shigeyoshi Morishita would break that mark by hitting 6 in 1946, and then he hit 12 in 1947, then 13 in 1948. Isamu Fujii would take the record in 1949 by hitting 16, but then freshly acquired Makoto Kozuru absolutely destroyed that mark, becoming NPB's first 50-homer man with 51 homers and a still record 161 RBI. That would remain the record, partially because it's ridiculous, and partially because, as stated earlier, the team fell off massively and got contracted. Seeking to bring the Pacific League up to 8 teams, Takahashi Breweries founded the Unions in 1954. They struggled along for 3 years before merging with the Daiei Stars after 1956, a year before that club was absorbed by the Orion. In their first year, their American catcher Sal Recca hit 23 homers. No one else even hit 10. For the entire 3 years the club existed. The Japanese record was a 5-way tie with 6, by Kazuhiro Kuroda, Yasuhiro Fukami, Tadao Maekawa, Takayuki Kuruki, and Shinya Sasaki. There's a reason this team died. Moving to Korea, the Hyundai Unicorns had one of the most complicated histories in the KBO, being the only team to go through 4 names. First they were the Sammy Superstars, then the Chinbo Pintos, then the Pacific Dolphins, before finally becoming the Hyundai Unicorns. In the end, the branch of Hyundai that owned the team, Hynix Semiconductors, was unable to financially support the team, and Hyundai, unwilling to directly fund the team out of fear of conflict of interest accusations, let the team dissolve after 2008. The remnants of which would be brought together to form the Heroes. The KT Wiz would then be founded to return pro baseball to Suwon. Okay, history lesson over, now what you're here for. Gwang Ok Kam, get your jokes out now, would be the team's first home run king, hitting 9 homers as the Superstars failed to live up to their name, only winning 15 games. Gu Sung Jung and Jinwoo Kim would each smack 15 homers in 1983, but it failed to pull the Superstars out of the basement. Their records wouldn't fall until 1992, when Kyungki Kim would take the record for himself by hitting 21, and then 23 in 1994. Jae-Hyun Park would become the first player in franchise history to hit 30 homers in a season in 1996, and repeated the feat in 1998. Meanwhile, former Hanshin Tigers Scott Coolbaugh would set the first mark for foreign players with 26 homers. Both records would be broken a year later by Eddie Pearson, who hit 31. Then in 2000, Kyungwon Park became the first unicorn to hit 40 homers in a season, and Thomas Quinlan would set a new foreign player mark with 37. Then in 2002, Jung-Soo Shim would blast 46 homers to take the record for himself. Then he broke his own record by hitting 53, good for the second most in a KBO season. Fittingly, that record would be tied by Byung-Ho Park, a member of the team that replaced the Unicorns. Founded in 1990 and joining the KBO in 1991, the Sungbungwol Raiders, or SBW Raiders for short, were a franchise that struggled mightily in their 9 years in the league, only making the playoffs twice. SBW would end up going bankrupt in 1999, and after they tried to hold the club hostage to sell it to cover their debts, the KBO stripped it from them, awarding their place to the SK Wyverns. Much like how the Heroes replaced the Unicorns and the Golden Eagles replaced the Kintetsu Buffaloes, the two are not considered the same franchise, although many historically minded fans essentially consider them to be the same team. But regardless, the Raiders only ever had one home run king, Ki-Tai Kim. After hitting 27 homers in the club's first season in 1991, Kim would set the mark by hitting 31 in 1992. He'd do that again in 1998 before he got traded to the Samsung Lions in a salary dump, something many Raiders fans considered to be the death of the franchise. Kim would finish his career with the SK Wyverns. Moving back to Taiwan now, here we meet the China Times Eagles. Despite only lasting 4 years, the club has perhaps the biggest impact of any team in CPBL history. And not in a good way. The Black Eagles match-fixing scandal is perhaps the most damaging event in CPBL history, and set the league back decades. They're only recovering from it now. I would go into more detail, but I'll leave that to someone more qualified to talk about Taiwanese baseball. Anywho, the first home run leader in Eagles history was Ming-Hsiung Liao, who hit 18 homers in 1993. Brian Giles, no not that one, led all foreign players with 6. Liao would build on his club record the next year, hitting 24 homers, while George Hinshaw added 21 to take the foreign player record for himself. Hinshaw would hit 22 in 1995, before Denny Gonzalez broke both records by hitting 27 in 1996. Since the Eagles only lasted one more year, that would stand as the final record. Originally joining the league in 1997 as the Coos Group Whales, the ChinaTrust Whales would fold in 2008 after ChinaTrust was hit deep by the 2008 recession. ChinaTrust would later buy the Brother Elephants in 2013. This means that the two clubs, despite having the same owners, are not the same franchise, much like how the Saitama Seibu Lions have no direct connection to the original Seibu-owned Tokyo Senators, despite having the rights to use the name and the uniforms. The first Wales home run king was Roberto Guerra, who hit 11 homers in the club's first season. Chun Yu-hong would lead all Taiwanese batters with 6. Former Orix Blue Wave DH Tai Gainey would step into the ring and hit 21 homers in 1998, with Lien Hyung Chen setting a new Taiwanese record with 16. Then, Wen Pin Chen set the mark with 26 in 2002. Reasoning that since he'd hit more home runs than Alex Cabrera had when he was a Whale, 18 if you're wondering, Chen decided he would try his hand at NPB as well, joining the Fukuoka Daiei Hawks. He failed. Miserably. And returned to the Whales a year later with his tail between his legs. Still, nobody beat it, and Chen and Gainey remained the record holders when the club folded in 2008. The other refugee from the Taiwan Major League, D-Media T-Rex, was the final name of a squad that began life as Makoto Gira before adopting the name Cobras in 2004. They would be sold to the D-Media Group in 2008, only for a match-fixing scandal to cause the team's expulsion from the league. Like the SBW Raiders, the club only ever had one home run king, Xia Shen-xie, who hit 18 homers in the club's initial season in 2003. Willis Otanez would grab the foreign player record in 2004 with 7, which is immediately eclipsed by Mario Encarnacion, who hit 17 in 2005. Xie would up his total to 23 the same year. Both would still be the record when the team went under in 2008. Last, but not least, the Mercuries Tigers. A founding member of the CPBL, the Tigers, like the Dragons, would fold in 1999 following a massive decline in the league's popularity. Their original home run king was Luis Iglesias, who batted 18 homers in 1990. Cheng Sheng Chen and Shin Ming Huang would lead all Taiwanese batters with 7. Chung Chu Lin would take the Taiwanese record with 16 homers in 1991, and then take the overall record by hitting 24 homers in 1992. Iglesias could only manage 23. Then, in 1996, Iglesias would take the overall record back when he hit 31 homers, becoming the CPBL's first 30-homer man. But unfortunately for the Tigers, Iglesias took this as an opportunity to go play somewhere else. And thus, the record's held, Lin with 24, Iglesias with 31. Unless Mercuries wants to revive the Tigers, that's where those records will stay. Hey, I'm back. Finally. As always, I want to say a quick thank you to my patrons, Alex Irish, Bear Kothman, The Baseball Brit, Brandon 2, Channing D, Claire Haggerty, G, Joe Hironaka, Jonah, Juan Jose Sanchez Bracamontes, Julian Willie, Lucas Borja, Mentasmic, Ryan Fox, The Frilled Shark, Uia Bird, Nat Lang, Tom Musa, Anthony Pang, Eric Cooper, and Mike Leone. Thank you all so much for your patience. I know it's been a long time since a major video, but I'm back, and hopefully I'll be able to put out content on a much more regular schedule. Thank you for sticking with me. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Boost this video in the algorithm if you liked it, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks.